Cool, now I can see you. Is this your at-home studio?
Hi, how are you? Yes, this is pretty much what we call my man cave. It's been changing a lot during time. I mean, through time, used to have like a larger desk and a lot more gear, racks, and synthesizers and stuff. And now it's just like trying to make it more compact and especially because it's at home. Luckily, technology allows me to kind of like just make things a lot easier to move around and um, really keep everything within one box. And as I said, like take a lot less room at home, just to actually have like my little working space. And I think as composers, I mean, we are so used to being locked in, even though right now we're living through a horrible pandemic. But I feel like for us, it just really doesn't change that much because we're always on quarantine. We're always locked in a hole, and even though it's daytime, I like to work at night mostly. So I close the shades and make it as dark as possible to put myself in that right element for myself. But
So, from you work in a pretty niche area of the market doing independent films. So, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself to members of our audience who may have not heard your music before.
gladly, my name is Oscar Jasso. That's with a J at the beginning. Um, and I'm based in Chicago, and I am an independent film composer, and I work mainly with independent films. And I have been lucky to have been doing this for over a decade. I had a friend that was a screenwriter, and he was about to do his first film, and somehow he knew this other filmmaker that was actually that happened to be my first gig, pretty much as a composer, which was I'm not going to say the title of the film, but it was about a killer puppet. It was a horror film,
That sounds terrifying.
and um, and it was a very interesting project, and I was way over my head mainly because I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know how to approach the film. I did not know anything about spotting sessions or anything like that. And even though I was paid, and I was paid, for somebody that didn't know what they were doing, I was paid, I think, fairly well for the amount of work that I did. Um, so and it was actually it's been like very very interesting since then because I've been working in very interesting projects, like not only from the United States, but I worked with other people in Italy or Turkey and other countries, and everything is actually so new all the time.
Do you ever find that it's weird to try and talk about your job or explain your job to non musicians who don't even know how to read sheet music and might not know what you're talking about?
Oh, definitely. It's always interesting when people meet me and they ask me what I do. And I tell them the first thing that they say is like, "Oh, do you write so you write songs?" And yeah, and well, I've never written a song in my life, I think, and still trying to explain that. Well, what I do is actually it has to do support the narrative. We're a big part of the storytelling, and we actually become kind of like an extension to the director and even to the writer sometimes of what they want to transmit in certain scenes and how they want to transmit it, and they rely on us to actually like help bring up that mood or give that experience for the audience. And for some people it's easier to understand than others. I mean, it's just I guess it's just hit or miss a lot of times, and I think like a lot of times I walk away um, from a crowd and they kind of like end up scratching their heads, not really understanding what I do. But so maybe I'll just tell them that I'm a songwriter, and maybe that'll just make it easier for them. Who knows?
So you hear, or at least I hear a lot about composers that after they have been composing more and more, they hardly ever touch their instrument and they don't really practice. But from what you're saying, I'm guessing that's not really the case for you.
No, it's I think every composer is very very different, and we have different priorities somehow in so many ways. And I grew up with the piano. I've been playing since I was actually very very young. I started taking lessons since I was very very young, and it just became like a very very big part of me in my life. Like I can't picture my life without that instrument. So when I'm not working here, I have a beautiful grand at the front of the living room with the big windows on the sides, and it's always it's one of my favorite things to kind of like take a break and go and sit and read something from the Well-Tempered Clavier or something like that, and and just keep active because music is something that I feel like we're always learning. I mean, it's just like one of those things that we're always learning. We never finish learning. There's always new things to discover, even with old composers, and it actually, the more we get out of it, I feel like it kind of like it's something that helps us as well, as creative people.
So you mentioned that you did study classical music composition when you were in college. Can I ask the last time you composed something that wasn't for a film score?
Oh boy. Sadly, and I'm ashamed to say it, I actually got into a really bad habit for a while that it's something that I'm trying to change right now where I would actually work on a project and as soon as I would be done, I would give myself a break until the next project and really just stop writing. And it's something that it's really really horrible. So this year I actually challenged myself to write, start little small, like write. I'm challenging myself to write a set of short piano pieces, and I'm thinking 8 actually, and I'm hoping to be done before October. Actually, have them all done hopefully, and just to kind of like get into that practice again of just like being productive no matter what, because sometimes it's just things come in a lot easier when one is active.
All right, so we got 7 minutes left. If you don't mind, because Zoom will cut us off eventually, if you don't mind me asking, what is your favorite story to tell from your adventures as a composer?
There are quite a few, to be honest. But I think that the one that I remember the most is actually, I think like about 6 or maybe 8 years ago, I was working on this film from some people from New York, and really cool people actually, and a really nice director, and you know, they were just a very they were a cool team to be working with. They had like great motivation, and they would just be very contagious. But when I was actually working on the opening sequence of the film, for the opening credits and everything, and the shot, I mean, was just beautiful. It had to do with about this piano tuner, and he's walking into this piano store, and he's preparing to work on the piano, and everything's in red, and it's just like it looks so amazing, and I felt like so, how can I say, so motivated about what I was watching. So I made like this piece that I feel was just like felt so natural to that. And and I sent it to them, and I was very excited that they're gonna love this. And they said, "No, can you try again?" And I was a little bit hurt, and which is wrong, but it happened. So I went ahead and did the second try, and they said no, and I did a third and a fourth, and I ended up doing 9 different pieces for that sequence, and right when I was actually arriving, actually I think I did 8 or 9, or maybe there were 8. But when I ended up I think I was getting to the ninth. Like I was almost in the middle of finishing the cue, and then suddenly they call me saying, "Drop what you're doing. We love the first one. We just fell in love with it." And I was like so angry. I mean, at the moment, and I was actually so, just really really angry about it because I felt like I lost a lot of time and everything. But the truth is that I learned a lot from that experience, and one of them is that when you're working with directors or producers, even though they have a lot of experience in what they're doing, hopefully, I mean, most of the time I've had I've been lucky to actually work with people that have a lot of experience in what they're doing. They don't speak music, and sometimes you have to sell them, your idea or something. And in this case, they just needed to give it another listen, and then suddenly it kind of like all clicked for them.
That's awesome. So you already mentioned Jaws. Now that you've been staying inside even more, what have you been listening to?
Well, I always go back to Mahler second, and that's a word that ever since I was like 16. I mean, I think I always come back to it at least once or twice a year. I mean, it has always made an impression on me. Um, it's just like I think as a film composer, it's just like always gonna go to like John Williams and James Horner, and I love Alexander Desplat's work, and but I do go back to Stravinsky and Bach, and lately even Steve Reich, actually, that I've always admired his work too. I mean, he's such a interesting person to listen to.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been awesome getting to talk to you. Any last thoughts?
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is actually a lot of fun. Final thoughts. The same thing that I tell my students everywhere. It's just that no, things are never what we think they're gonna be, or either good or bad. There's always a way, and if we really love what we're doing, we are gonna get, we're gonna put the work into it. I mean, we have to, and if we really love what we're doing, um, it's we're going to be compensated somehow, and I feel like very, very privileged and very, very, I guess I would use the word blessed, to actually be doing what I do. I never and really, really making a living out of it. It's just like really, really mind blowing to me, and I could have um, and I, we really just have to really, really try hard. We really have to work, and we really have to be humble about it, because we are always learning, and no matter what school we went to or who our teachers were, there's always something new to discover, and we should always be like preparing that ourselves that we're always going to discover something new, and that's very, very important. And so, if you really find something that you love, just like really, really go for it, and go all the way, not just halfway. Really, really go for it, go in deep, and you might feel like sometimes we run into a little bit of trouble, but if we really keep pushing, things work out, and mm, just like really never get discouraged about it. Just keep pushing.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for joining me today. Have an awesome day.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Of course. Bye.